Naturale, Vai.
No one up there loves you. No one up there loves you is the English title for the Italian Fra le Nuvole non c'è nessuno. Now, let me explain some of the reasons why I have written this book. We can certainly say that this book's major concern is the individual self-determination, so far as life end is concerned. What do I mean by that? I mean the right for the individual to decide whether to undergo useless suffering or not. So while it would be correct to regard this book as a kind of manifesto in support of individual self-determination, it would be rather unfair to consider this book a libel, a debunking libel, which is not. The book is our work of fiction. It's our work of fiction drawn from a real case. I should say something about the real case shortly. Three are the main characters holding the thread of this novel, each keeping the diary, each telling their stories. Of the three, the one which stands out as a symbol for the whole story is Maria. Maria, 88 years of age, manages to carry out her plan to escape undesired over-treatment. She manages to bring her plan to a successful conclusion, most incredibly in her own bed, inside a faith-based home, inside a religious home. She leaves her posthumous diary to Dr. Stefano, where she gives a detailed account of her last few months spent in the rest home. Needless to say, a great deal of the diary focus on the appalling conditions, on the terrible conditions imposed on elderly patients, elderly people, regardless of their will, regardless of their decision. As a matter of fact, Maria accepts Dr. Stefano's advice to get into an institute, though she is fully determined not to undergo over-treatment, which she feels is an unbearable offense, an unbearable abuse to her as a person. So, Maria is afraid, she is horrified at the idea of being bound to be tied up to a machine. So what does she do? She works out a plan and starts keeping a diary. She writes her diary in English, hoping no one in the house will ever understand what's in it. And she was lucky. Despite the inquisitive, occasional glimpses of the doctors, of the nurses, the nuns through her diary, all of them are unable to understand what is being written. And now I wish to say a few words about the real case, which has inspired the book. The real case is none other than my mother's case. The character on the story which embodies my mother's dramatic experience is Agnese, who in the book is left living the life of a plant. She's left living the life of a plant, whereas in real life my mother dies. My mother died in a rest home, in a rest house a year ago. A year ago, after she had been forced for years to be alive by means of drugs and machinery, and all that against her will, and all that despite the attempts made through the court to have her useless suffering acknowledged, so as to be given a dignified end. Never in her life would my mother have ever decided to end up in a high-edged bed, suffering the pains of the worst kind, feeling the wires and the tube stuck inside her body for an everlasting agony. When my mother was my age, 69, I am 69, mentioning the case of a friend of hers undergoing over-treatment, that's what she used to say. I'd better be dead and buried 1,000 times rather than going through that awful treatment. At the time, she could not imagine that no one in the world could have spared her that awful life end. Along with the self-determination issue, which is here dominant and central, this book deals with a number of today's alarming problems, such as the aimless, dangling new generation, criminal love, exploitation and mobbing in the world of work, and a case of a young immigrant who manages to free herself from the inhuman, ruthless world of prostitution. In conclusion, the moral of this book, which is certainly no fairy tale, is as simple as that. While no one can hope to find immediate solutions to many of the problems brought forward, awareness, consciousness of the problems certainly helps, especially when it comes to undergo useless suffering, especially when it comes to the respect of one's own will, one's own decision.